Hey friends, today we are going to learn about something really cool, fossils. Our learning targets are to review characteristics of some of the Earth's features, explain how fossils provide information about the history of the Earth, demonstrate an understanding of the word preserved, and write a letter using information you learned about fossils. Our key vocabulary are fossil, impression, paleontologist, and preserved. Fossil. A fossil is the preserved imprint or body of a plant or animal that died many years ago. The scientist found a large fish fossil. Impression. Impression is the shape of something left on a surface due to pressure. Their mother always knew when they jumped on the bed because of the impression of their feet on the mattress, or when you go to the beach. You see the impression of your feet in the sand, and that happens because of the pressure on the surface of the sand. Paleontologist. A paleontologist is a person or a scientist who studies living things from long ago by looking at fossils. As a paleontologist, she was able to travel to many different places to study fossils. Preserved. Preserved means kept in good condition over a long period of time. The preserved fruits and vegetables last through most of the winter. Okay. So, what have we learned so far? I want you to share one thing you've learned. I learned that there are 3 different types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Okay. What type of scientist is Jerry, and what does he study? He's a geologist, and he studies rocks. Jerry the geologist studies things that are not living. They are not plants or animals. Plants and animals are living things. What are some plants or animals that live on the earth now? Squirrels, dogs, cats, horses, mice, plants, some succulents. I got a succulent for my birthday / Valentine's Day. So today we are going to meet a friend of Jerry's who will tell you guys about plants and animals that lived on the earth many, many years ago. Remember our key vocabulary. We have fossil, impression, paleontologist, and preserved. Listen carefully to find out how paleontologists learn about plants and animals that lived on the earth many years ago. Hi, everyone. My name is Pam, and I am a paleontologist. Let's call her Pam the paleontologist. Jerry the geologist is a friend of mine. He called me this morning and asked me to come in and finish teaching you about the history of the earth. He is so sorry he can't be here, but all of this rock talk has him itching to see some neat rocks himself, so he is off hiking in the mountains. A paleontologist is a scientist who studies paleontology, which is the study of life that existed on Earth in the distant past, so a long time ago. Can you see the word paleontologist? Paleontologist. Paleontologists study bones to learn about life on Earth long ago. This isn't just any bone, it's a dinosaur bone. I'll be teaching you about dinosaurs pretty soon. Jerry told me that you already know about basic geologic features: heat, pressure, and time. You also know that sedimentary rocks, such as sandstone and limestone, are formed from layers of sediments that have been pressed together over time. Sediments can be tiny pieces of dirt or rock, or even decayed plants and animals. These layers of sediment offer many clues about the history of life on Earth. The history of life on Earth is my specialty as a paleontologist. What type of rock is that? Look at the different, look at all the stripes. What kind of rock is that? Sedimentary. How did we know that it was sedimentary when we looked at this? Because we can see the different layers of sediments that have been pressed together over time, right? The lines show different layers of sediments. Paleontologists need to know a lot about rocks and geology in order to study living things because something called a fossil. A fossil is the preserved body or imprint of a plant or animal that lived thousands, millions, or even billions of years ago. If something is preserved, it is kept in good condition over a long period of time. Most fossils, like this fossil of a seashell, show you where the body of an animal or plant died and was buried under layer and after layer of sediment. Over many years, with more and more sediments pressing down on it, its shell became part of the stone that formed as a result of geologic pressure. You are only seeing the impression or shape of it, not the actual shell. Think about if you have ever played with Play-Doh and if you've pressed something into that Play-Doh and then pulled that thing out of the Play-Doh, your Play-Doh has a mark in it, right? That's left over from your toy. The creature itself and its shell decayed and rotted away, but the shape stayed imprinted in the rock. As you dig down into the earth, the soil and rocks are divided into layers. These layers represent different geologic periods or times during which the crust and surface of the earth changed. For instance, if you find a layer of sandstone on dry land, then you know that there may have been an ocean or river over that land at some point. This means by examining rocks in our area, scientists can tell if there used to be an ocean where our city is now and how long ago it was that there was an ocean where we are. We can estimate how old certain fossils may be thanks to our understanding of geology and rock layers. Fossils are usually found in layers of sedimentary rocks, though they can be found in other rock formations as well. It looks like the paleontologist in this picture has found a good place for fossil hunting. He has to dig very carefully to make sure he keeps the fossils in good condition. Every fossil is part of the Earth's fossil record. The fossil record includes everything we've learned about the history of life from studying fossils. The fossil record is what paleontologists study in order to figure out what life on Earth was like many years ago. Paleontologists can determine the animal and plant imprinted in the fossils when the animals and plants imprinted in the fossils lived based on the rock layers in which they were found. They use information from all fossils to create a timeline of Earth. A timeline of life on Earth shows the order in which plants and animals existed from long ago to today. Today, I would like to show you several different fossils from different time periods during the history of the Earth. This is a fossil of a trilobite, an animal that some scientists believed lived about 550 million years ago. Trilobites may look like insects, but they are more closely related to lobsters and crabs. Trilobites came in many varieties from half of an inch up to 28 inches in length. So they could be this small, or they could be about that. So they could be really little, or they could be a pretty big, okay? They had antennas, lots of legs, and a hard outer shell called an exoskeleton. That exoskeleton is important because it meant that the dead trilobites were easily fossilized when they became buried in the sand. The fossil record estimates that the first plants appeared on land about the same time. Back then, there was no soil on the land because soil contains dead, decayed plants. Since these were the first plants on land, no plants had yet died in order to create soil. The first plants did not have the same characteristics as plants today. These plants were less than half an inch tall. They had no roots, no leaves, no flowers or seeds, but they were plants nevertheless. So those things were less than that big. Okay. Soon came the age of fish. Many different types of fish ruled the waters. Also during this time, plant and animal life on land began to spread rapidly. The first soils developed on land, allowing new types of plants with leaves, stems, and roots to grow. With the new plants came new land creatures ready to eat those plants. Tetrapods, the first amphibians, made their way onto the beaches. An amphibian is an animal, such as a frog, that lives part of its life in water and part of its life on land. Paleontologists have found many tetrapod fossils. An artist drew this picture using a tetrapod fossil, which shows what a real tetrapod might have looked like. Do you think any of the tetrapod's body parts look like they belong to a fish? Maybe its tail? And it kind of looks like it might have gills, but it also looks like a frog. Then, lush forests full of trees and plants, such as ferns, began to grow. As forests increased, so too did the variety and sizes of animals. The first giant reptiles appeared. Of course, the one in this picture, called the Dimetrodon, is just a model that someone made. But they based this model on a fossilized Dimetrodon bones found in the earth. Paleontologists call the body part that's sticking up on its back a sail because it looks like the sail on a boat. Dimetrodon was not a dinosaur, but it certainly looked like one, and dinosaurs were soon to follow. We will learn more about dinosaurs next time. That is as far as the fossil record will take us today. Wow, that's pretty cool. I don't know that I would want to see one of those out in the wild, though. I think it would kind of freak me out. What about you? All right, if you need to hop up and take a quick wiggle break, go ahead and then come right back for our comprehension questions and word work. Who can tell me what is a fossil? A fossil is the preserved body or imprint of a plant or animal that lived long, long ago. Are fossils formed over a short period of time or a long period of time? They're formed over a long period of time, a very long period of time. What did this fossil tell us about the history of Earth? That the first plants lived on Earth long, long ago. And remember, these were the really itty bitty ones. Okay. And what about this? What does this fossil tell us about the history of the Earth? That the first fish lived on Earth long, long ago, right? Oopsie, that's too far. What do paleontologists study? They study the history of life on Earth. And what do they use to help them? Rocks and fossils, right? How is the work of a paleontologist similar or the same as the work of a geologist? They both use rocks to help learn about the history of the Earth, right? So geologists learn about the history of the Earth, paleontologists learn about the history of life on Earth, but they still use rocks, right? How are they different? Paleontologists were studying things that lived on Earth, including plants and animals, while geologists studied non-living things from long ago, like rocks, volcanoes, and layers of the Earth, right? Okay, word work. In the read aloud you heard, a fossil is the preserved body or imprint of a plant or animal that lived thousands, millions, or even billions of years ago. Say the word preserved with me. Preserved. Can you whisper it? Preserved. Can you say it in a robot voice? Preserved. Okay. If something is preserved, it is kept in good condition over a long period of time. My mother preserved the pictures by putting them in a photo album. Why is it important for things to be preserved? Try to use the word preserved when you talk about it. Because it helps us learn things, right? I'm going to describe some things. If I describe something that is preserved, say, that's preserved. And if I describe something that is not preserved, I want you to say, that's not preserved. Fruit picked during the summer and put in a tightly sealed jar for the winter. That is preserved. They are saving that fruit and keeping it in good shape for winter, for a later time. Trash on the sidewalk that got wet in the rain, not preserved. The fossil of a seashell, that is preserved. A bike left outside in the yard, that's not preserved. A fern fossil found imprinted in a rock, that is preserved. Very good. Okay, let's make sure we have hit all of our learning targets. We reviewed characteristics of some of the Earth's features. Yes. We explained how fossils provide information of the history of the Earth. We talked about the word preserved, and you are going to write a letter in just a minute talking about what you learned about fossils. Okay, guys, see you next time.